Hello friends, we are here today in Galatians chapter 2. So we're getting into this chapter to what the heart of the issue was. If you watch the last chapter, this whole book is about the gospel, the pure gospel, and the Galatians have gotten away from it. And he's saying, I'm so surprised by how fast you guys were getting away from the gospel. Now, he hints at it here, and he's going to get into it more, but what was the way that they were getting away from the gospel? And the truth is, it's the way that most people today get away from the gospel, and that is they've become legalistic. Now, there's different ways of becoming legalistic, but what it came to with the Galatians was that they were Judaizing. There were people coming after them, telling them, you need to be circumcised and able to become a Christian. Now, circumcision means more than just, the procedure that's done. It's what's known as a covenantal marker. If you are circumcised, essentially it means that you are identifying yourself with all of the Jewish laws, and there's many of them. Essentially, it means you have to become a Jew to become a Christian, and that's the first form of legalism. But it still happens today. I know a lot of people today that are just like, you can't listen to rock and roll music. Men have to cut their hair short, and women have to keep their hair long, and men have to wear long pants, and women have to wear dresses, and there's music that you have to listen to, and you can't get tattoos, and there's just all these like little fringe things that a lot of people think this is what you have to do in order to be righteous, and it's absolutely wrong. So Paul, back then, is talking to them and mostly talking about circumcision. He said, Barnabas and I, after 13 years where before I met with Peter, and our gospel was the same, I came to Jerusalem because I was given a vision that I was supposed to go to Jerusalem, and I did. And when I went there, I met with everybody, and we all again had the same gospel. Everything was perfectly the same. And then they sent us out. Me and Barnabas, and he said, and Titus was with us, and Titus was not circumcised. So he's making it very clear, you don't need to be circumcised here. We, as the missionary group, had a person with us, not circumcised, and so we went off. And what's interesting here is that he's got this argument, and it is an ironclad argument here. So their gospels were the same when he left, and then when they went to Antioch, Peter was there. And Peter was going against the gospel that they all agreed on. Now, the gospel he's talking about is grace through faith. We are saved not by the works. We are saved not by following laws. We are saved not by covenantal markers. We are saved by grace through faith, and faith alone. That is how we are saved. So they all came to this agreement, and then they're going to Antioch, which is not part of Israel, and there's two different groups there. There's the Jews, and then there's the Gentiles, and it's a Gentile city. And he was noticing that Peter and even Barnabas, he may say Cephas. If you see the word Cephas in this chapter, that's another way of saying Peter. So he saw Cephas, and they were there, and they were eating with the Jews, which is Jewish dietary law. That's another, that's just following the law. So if you're circumcised, you should only eat with the circumcised, and you can only eat in a certain way, and you can only eat certain foods, and it has to all be cleaned in a certain way. And Paul is saying, absolutely not. He said, we are all this new creation. We don't follow these dietary laws, especially when we're trying to go around to to witness to the Gentiles. What's interesting is that Paul shouldn't have had to tell Peter this. Peter himself had a vision from God. If you remember in Acts, where, this blanket came down with all of these unclean animals, and God himself said, kill and eat. And that was a revelation to everyone. So when he is talking here about spreading the gospel to the circumcised, he was the one charged by God to say, look, there's no partiality between Jew and Gentile. We're all the same. So he's speaking to Peter because Peter is going back. He is going away from the gospel. This is so important. Peter even said, after they had this argument in front of everyone, Peter even came back and said, I am wrong. Paul at the end of the chapter makes two amazing points. I think it's important to note here that Paul was a Pharisee. He built his whole life around being a person who follows all of the laws. And he says, when Christ died, I died with him. That is to say, everything that my life was surrounded by, everything that I built my identity on, it died with him. And he said, now that Christ is risen, he says, it is no longer I that live at all, but Christ living in me. He's saying, I don't even know what person I am anymore. I was the man who was following the law to the letter, and I was rising up in ranks, above other people. And now I have this new heart, this new drive within me. And it's so drastically different that it's not even me who lives anymore. It's just Christ living in me. And at the end, he makes a statement that is so important, and that is, I feel like I need to read it. If righteousness came through the law, then Christ died for no purpose. This is why legalism is so dangerous. A lot of people try to gain their own salvation through doing good works. Honestly, I do it. Everybody does it. This is our natural tendency, is to say, if I'm a good enough person, then God will accept me. This is how we were wrongfully wired. We are wired so that we will gain our own salvation. But this is the gospel. This is why every other religion is so much different. And this is why if you change the gospel a little bit, it changes everything. Because when you are saved by grace through faith, that means that all of your works, everything you do to gain your own salvation, is not relying on the fact that Jesus died. Jesus died so that you could trust in his sacrifice, so that you could be saved. And it's so backward to think that you can get it any other way. It's more than backward. It's harmful. It's evil. Let anybody who says that be accursed, because it is so antithetical to the core of Christianity. We know that that's not true. Christ died so that we could live. Anyways, that is Galatians chapter 2. Have a great day. Bye.